The wisdom of God serves every purpose. It's not something that's limited to the church. It's with us daily. And it goes with us. It works with us. It keeps us. And it's present in our everyday decisions. And I think that's so important for us to understand that God is always with us and keep him. And one of my favorite proverbs is that in all thy ways acknowledge him and he shall direct our path. God is right there with us. The wisdom of God is a present help that leads us and guides us in everything that we do. And if we can just learn to follow the wisdom of God, we will find ourselves living such a better quality of life. So we always want to seek out that wisdom and definitely walk in that wisdom. And as always, it's such a pleasure to present the Sanctuary Sunday School to you, powered by the Sanctuary Academy. And I'm so proud to remind you that now the Sanctuary Academy has enabled memberships on the YouTube channel. That is a huge accomplishment. I want to again thank you for following me and going with me. Check it out at www.thesanctuary.academy, or you can just click the membership button right on the video. And I'm so excited about that. I'm looking forward to all of the things that we get to share now that we are a membership site channel. This week's subject is wisdom's gifts. And I love the way that's worded, wisdom's gift, the gift of God of wisdom to us. And again, we're in the book of Proverbs and we're talking about wisdom. And the way that this starts out here, all of the words of my mouth are in righteousness. There is nothing froward or perverse in them. Wisdom and righteousness go hand in hand. And I thought it interesting here that we started talking about what comes out of your mouth. Because sometimes we can be a little bit reckless and what we say, the words that come out of our mouths are so powerful, right? And so this is telling us that anything that comes, if you're wise, if you have the wisdom of God, anything that comes out of your mouth is going to be righteousness. There's not going to be anything that's off or perverse in that, because you have to be either one or the other, either holiness or nothing else. And it's plain to the ones who understand it, because you want to find knowledge, and we want that understanding and that wisdom and that knowledge. You never want to be someone who is just going off doing things with the lack of knowledge and the lack of understanding, because that's not representative of God. God is all knowing, he's omniscient, and he's all powerful. So if we're going to be representatives of him, then we need to understand him. And that's why it says here to receive my instruction. And that wisdom is more valuable than silver and is more valuable than gold. And it goes on to say it's better than rubies, and nothing can be compared to it. And when you consider that, if you value wisdom over riches and over rubies and gold and silver and all of those things, the irony is you will acquire those things. Just like Solomon, King Solomon, when God promised to be with Solomon after the death of his father David, he asked him what he wanted. Solomon asked for wisdom. But not only was Solomon the wisest man that ever lived, he was one of the richest men that ever lived. There, the splendor of Solomon's temple and his palace is unmatched. So when you choose God's wisdom and make God's wisdom your priority, there's nothing that can happen except the quality of your life will increase. So we always want to consider that. So we talked about wisdom and what wisdom is and what wisdom does. And so then we switch, and I see a little bit of personification here. It says, I, wisdom, dwell with prudence and find out knowledge of witty inventions. And so wisdom, it is like a person that walks with us and leads us and guides us and teaches us how to be wise and how not to fall into traps that may be set against us. Okay, because the fear of the Lord hates evil and pride and arrogance. And so those are things that you don't find in wisdom. And that's kind of where I've learned to watch people. Because when you see the pride, the hatefulness, the arrogance, those things, that they are not of God. And that's where righteousness, again, and wisdom go hand in hand. Because righteousness, one of the indicators of righteousness is humility. So humility does not mean that you don't have any values, you don't care how things goes. That's not what it means. But humility means that you do not place yourself as a priority over other people in an abusive way. And so we're talking about this. He hates pride and evil. We care for each other. It's wise for us to care about each other. Counsel is mine, and I'm understanding. I have strength, and I like the strength in wisdom. Sometimes people do foolish things as a sign of being a know-it-all. That's not what wisdom is. Wisdom is not the know-it-all who just does anything. Wisdom is power. It's strength. That's what made you strong. And because of that, that's where you get your kings and your rulers. And now, as I look at what's going on today in politics, we're actually seeing firsthand the results of having leaders who lack wisdom, and it has sent the world into a terrible place. And so that's why wisdom is so important, and that's what we need to rule by, especially those of us who are leaders. You don't have to be an elected official to be a leader. If people listen to you and if people follow you, you must have the wisdom of God. And that's something that's extremely challenging for me, which is why I study and I fast and I pray all the time, because people listen to me. And if you're listening to me, I definitely don't want you to ever hear something that's foolish or unwise come out of my mouth. And then look at this. Riches and honor, they're with you because of the wisdom. And so again, people who do foolish things for riches and honor, you may get them, but you don't really get to keep them. See, and here it says you get to keep them, and it stays with you. When God gives something to you, you're not going to lose it because it's yours, rightfully so. And again, I lead in the ways of righteousness. And those are things that we have to understand in the midst of the path of judgment, and that I may cause those that love me to inherit substance, and I will fill their treasures. Those are the promises of wisdom. That's the authority of wisdom. That's what wisdom does to you. And this is such a timely lesson because it's so important for us to seek wise counsel. And I've said this countless times. We're in a world where people will say and do anything, and they're so convincing. If I hadn't grown up in Sunday school, and if I didn't know the word, and if I didn't know right from wrong, they would convince me of some of this foolishness that I'm hearing out there. But see, when you have the wisdom of God, and when you receive wisdom's gifts, these are the gifts that come with being wise. When you acknowledge God, and as we see, when we talk about wisdom, we kept seeing the word righteousness woven throughout this passage. The righteousness of God gives you wisdom. And I'm just going to throw this in here, even because we're in the midst of this COVID-19 pandemic. We need to rely on the wisdom of God. God is not foolish. God does not tell you to do foolish things. He will not have you risk your life for a reason that is totally unnecessary. There are some people who have given their lives for a cause, but if you just choose to be reckless, that's not the wisdom of God. We want to rely on God's wisdom and all of these things, and the promises that wisdom has with it, with being able to have what you want. And sometimes when you do this, it goes with it. So being righteous, being holy, going to church, studying the word, preaching, teaching, whatever, that's all necessary. But at the same time, God has given us this wisdom, so we have to apply it to our lives daily to see these results that we're talking about in this passage, which are wisdom's gift. And the way that you get wisdom, you ask God for it. He gives it freely. I think that was last Sunday's lesson. God gives us wisdom freely, and He's the author of wisdom. He's not the God of confusion. We don't want to be walking around days confused, not knowing where we're going, not knowing what we're doing. We want to have that understanding. We want to have that wisdom, and above all, we want to be righteous. And that is what unlocks wisdom's gifts.